Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about the astrology transits for the day, human design, and of course, finishing up our conversation about the gene keys. Not finishing the conversation of the gene keys, but of the particular gene key 44 that we've been working on this week. Good morning, Suzanne. It's good to see you out there. And I welcome anybody new, old. I just love that we have this little community that seems to be growing. And I love the interaction that we have with one another. And yesterday, we were having a conversation at some point about Saturn, and a couple of people actually hit me up after the show to ask me about Saturn in their human designs and also what is, going on with Saturn in the sky. And remember, yesterday we talked about the idea of form and structure, and the point of the T-square during the autumn equinox is going to be with the point at Saturn. So there was some point, if you will, to changing or looking at the relative strength of your foundations, right? Whatever that might mean for you, whether it's literally the foundation of your home, is it the foundation that you've built your life around? Is it the foundation of your relationships? Whatever it is, when Saturn is in its own sign, which it is right now in Capricorn, it has more power to at once expose the weaknesses in your forms and your structures, and to also help you to fortify, strengthen, or create sustainability where before you may not have had sustainability. And that led us to a conversation, or maybe it was the prelude, the day before, where we were talking about Saturn as the greatest teacher in your human design. You can find it and you could really hone in right in on what it is that are your biggest lessons in this lifetime, both from your soul's purpose, your causal body, if you will, and also from your more physical incarnation, the path that is your life purpose. So I thought this morning I printed up my own human design chart for you somewhere, because I don't mind if people see my chart. And if you have your own charts available, take a look, because I'm going to show you right now where Saturn is, and then allow you to really kind of dig deeper over the next couple of days before we go through that autumn equinox portal and look at what is the tension at the point here. What is that in your human design? So here's my chart. Now, I want to call your attention over here to these two columns of numbers and these symbols that run down the center here, right? The center, woo, hello. Why can't I get that to focus in? Maybe I need to bring it over this way. So down here, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4th from the bottom. You see the planet Saturn. That's the symbol for Saturn right there. And it is these gates that you want to look at. It appears that my lessons tend to be right around here. In fact, in human design, if you want to reap your Jupiter rewards and benefits up here, you have to master your Saturn lessons. So I thought I would show everybody where that is in your chart. 4th one up from the bottom, that's the symbol for Saturn astrologically. And this is going to tell you the black side is your soul purpose side. So the soul's lessons in this case, the soul's need to grow and evolve through this gate. And then your life purpose also being over on this side, where you can see that in my case anyway, Saturn happened to be, Saturn was retrograde when I was born, happened to be standing still, probably getting ready to turn back to direct. And then there's also Jupiter sitting at the same gate. Now that happens because Jupiter and Saturn were in a fairly close conjunction at the time I was born. They were out of sign, though, out of sign conjunction. So I just wanted everybody to know where that is in their chart. And then from that point, you can either get to your human design book or to your Gene Keys by Richard Rudd book. Look up that gene key, that gate, and take a deep dive into what it is that your biggest lessons are. And there's something else I've been meaning to talk to you all about in terms of your human design. And it's not something that we talk a lot about, but there seems to be consistent themes that pop up throughout a human design, as in on multiple levels, there are certain things that are going to repeat themselves. And not just repeat as in, that what goes around comes around, what goes around comes around kind of thing. Not like that kind of repeat, but more like a theme that is running through your chart. And interestingly enough, there's what do I talk a lot about? Magic, the magic of life, and it runs through my chart. And I just recognized this as I was looking at my own Saturn, where it's not it's not a very lovely Saturn that I have. It's about limitation. It's about realism. And it is sort of, to me, when I hear those words, it feels like a damper on magic. But the theme of magic runs through this particular gate. So I encourage you all to read through, the different parts of your human design, especially if you have a Gene Keys book, and look at the depth of the person that you are, right? It's really extraordinary. All right. Any questions about that? Thank you. Suzanne says that is what I needed to know. Good morning, Debbie. It's good to see you. Good morning, Mimi. Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Michelle Gay. Good morning, Colleen. Good morning, Suzanne. All of you, welcome. And anybody else whom I can see some people out there, but I don't always know who everybody is that's able to watch. Sometimes people check in, sometimes they don't. But if you're not checking in, that's cool. Just know that I'm wishing you all a good morning. Now, I have something else I want to talk to you about that, I love all of you so much. I mean, that's just a part of who I am, is just to reach out with love to people. And there is a particular person, I'm not mentioning names because I just don't want to do that to her, that is in particular hurt right now and going through something that's very sticky, both for her and her kids and her family in general. So I just want you to send out some loving wishes to just send them out to all of the listeners of our morning show, because it will find the person in need that I'm speaking of here. I don't have her permission to bring that up, which is why I am being careful in what I'm saying. But there is one among us who is in a struggle, a mighty struggle right now. And I just wish, I even dreamt about it last night. And remember I said yesterday, you might have disturbing dreams last night? Well, I had a disturbing dream, and it was really around this person and her struggle. And I wish I could have, used my crystal ball to see what the outcome was of the struggle. It was more of the emotional feeling I had tapped into. So I just say, let's just send out love and peace and good wishes to all of us, and they will reach the right people. All right. So, wow, what a day we have today. Thank you, Suzanne. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Today, like yesterday, is a very interesting day. Remember, we've been talking about the fact Mercury and the Sun have been catching up with one another, and that would become the superior conjunction. Terms that just say, okay, this is happening in the space between the retrograde and the next retrograde. So it happens when the planet Mercury is moving forward. And the inferior conjunction happens when the planet Mercury is moving retrograde. So we are in the midst of a superior conjunction. And, let's just think about what these things mean, right? The sun being the full force of our personalities, of our ego bodies, of our purpose in being here. It is the giver of life and light, and it is being caught up to by Mercury, the messenger. And whenever this happens, there's this feeling that new information is being delivered, right? Mercury moves sort of fast. So this can happen a couple of times a year. And it's almost like he does a drive-by, deposits information, and then continues on his path to meet up with the other planets to deposit information. So yesterday, today, tomorrow, and even into the fall equinox, we have this possibility of being able to see things from a new perspective. This is a little bit more intense today because the moon is now in Aquarius, and Aquarius already likes to turn things upside down to see how they could be different, right? It's the sign of the inventor. Let's take apart the clock and put it back together, or let's take apart things and see if we can't make a new, uh, uh, maybe a new machine out of it, whatever, or, just looking at things from a different perspective. So right now it's favored for all of you to try new things, right? Doing things in a new way. So remember there's that definition of insanity that says doing things in the same way but expecting a different outcome is literally loony. Well, I think in some ways we all have been doing that, right? We keep trying to attack our lives in a way, our problems perhaps, or even, looking for specific opportunities in a way that is, on repeat. And you know how it is when you've got a song on repeat and you finally get tired of it and you can't stand it. This is that time, right? Where you can't stand it. The heat is too much for doing it the same old way. So it's time to do things in a new way, right? It's time to look at it from a different perspective. Yes, definitely the definition of insanity. So let's get out of the insanity, right? Let's jump out while Mercury is in the process of delivering new information to the sun and shining it right down into your life. Try something new. Let it, be something that is completely out of the norm for you, right? If you normally do certain things a certain way at a certain time, break out of that pattern, right? Break out of that pattern. This particular conjunction can bring us, especially today with the moon, it's sitting in the sign of Aquarius, can bring us these revelations, even ahas, or that, duh, why didn't I see that before, right? So it's really great energy that we have building for us in the background. Diana says, time for change. Definitely. What about opportunities? What opportunities are out there that you haven't grabbed a hold of yet? Maybe you've been waiting for a sign, or maybe you've been just kind of ignoring it because it just seems like it's not the right thing. But maybe taking, a wider view of life today and tomorrow and Saturday. Why not, right? Taking a wider view, get the wider angle camera lens out and take a look at that bigger picture. Today's also the possibility that plans come together, right? The culmination of something maybe that's been in the works, maybe the release of something that you had been building toward, but that because we had so many stop signs up that we weren't able to get done. So we have this idea that maybe things are coming to that head, or coming to that point, and we're about ready to break free. It's like coming through a tunnel, right? And all the while you could see the light at the end of that tunnel, but it seems like the faster you try to go, the farther the end of the tunnel is. Well, we're getting to the end of that tunnel, right? The light is getting brighter and brighter and brighter. It may have already happened for some of you, right? It may have already happened to you even in the end of last week, where we were still dealing with Jupiter sitting at gate 43, which is sometimes a gate of breaking through. Where ideas burst out, right? Ideas, optimism replacing pessimism, right? So there's this really good energy going on here in sort of the background of some of these other things that are still a little bit, scritchy. But the main thing about this day and these next couple of days is really about what opportunities can you open up to, even if it doesn't, I'm thinking about this person who's having a major issue going on in her life. And I just keep thinking about, and even for my own life, what would it feel like to just relax your shoulders and turn it all over to God or source or goddess? What would that feel like to have such trust that you could surrender everything, the outcomes of everything in your life? What would that feel like? I can't even imagine, because we're so used to micromanaging and holding on tight and, scrimping and scrapping and, kind of almost like, oh, please, mister, give me a little morsel, right? We're so used to that. And what would it be like to just say, I'm done, right? I'm just so done. with that. I just release this. I just release this to the higher plan that's in place that maybe I don't see clearly. That is the energy that we have, right? So interesting stuff today. There's also a sharp edge to our words today. It's almost like the mind and the mouth are in alignment. And when the mind and mouth are in alignment, it can be a really good thing. It means that you can say very clearly what's on your heart, or that you could say very clearly what it is that you really need to say. But on the other hand, some of you who are emotionally defined, I'm including myself in that, there may be an emotional outburst of words. And you've got to understand that right now your words are sharp as attack. And those words have impact because the sun and Mercury together are sitting at gate 6 now, the gate of impact, right? Debbie, you know a little bit about impact of words, impact of cars, the impact of, losing your mind for a moment and putting your purse in the sink and letting it fill up with water. These are all little things that point us to where we are out of alignment. And that sharp edge can bring trouble, but it can also bring beauty. It can also bring absolute revelation to the table. All right. I want to tell you something else that's really interesting that I just had an aha about this morning as I was checking out how much longer we're going to be at gate 6, which, by the way, is just through tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? I don't know. So many times I live in the future, and right now I'm living even into 2019 because I'm putting together a project, and so I'm already on February's moons, and so forgive me if some of these things get kind of mixed up in my head. We're through the 20th, so through tomorrow we are in the gate of impact, and then we begin the shift into a new sun earth combination, and in preparation for the gates of love that we walk through at the portal of the equinox. But something occurred to me with gate 6, because as I'm looking at that, I remembered that this gate is sometimes about the battle of the sexes, right? It's about balancing polarities, right? And what do we have right out front in our faces right now is the Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination that is, being fought between a woman who's come forward and said he sexually assaulted her, and the possibility that there are other women who've had issues with this man, and the possibility that he is going to get nominated to the highest court in the land for life, for his life, right? And how I remember, I don't know how many of you remember the same sort of battle when Clarence Thomas was going to be nominated as a Supreme Court justice, and Anita Hill came forward with how he used to harass her and abuse her, or at least, say harassing things to her in the context of being a woman in a man's world, and how different the world is right now during this nomination than it was at the time. I think it was in the 90s, early 90s, when the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas thing was going on. But I would bet if I go back in time, I would see that the sun or some other big body, maybe even Venus, was sitting at gate 6, because it draws the battle lines. It shows us where we are out of balance in the polarities, right? Where, somehow we've gotten, to one end or the other, where we need to bring things back into, somewhat of a harmony. And that means balancing the polarities between male and female, masculine and feminine, religion and science, right and wrong, Democrat, Republican, et cetera, go on and on, right? Black, white. It's all about balancing polarity. So in our faces is where there has been and continues to be an imbalance in our world. Right in our faces. It's like life imitating art. Or art imitating life. I don't know which. All right. Another reminder for everyone. You might remember back in May, we were talking about Mars. As Mars was slowing down and preparing for his retrograde, we were talking about the different gene keys that Mars would be sitting at. Well, now you know, of course, Mars has come through the retrograde, is now moving forward, and it is now moving back over the same places it has been already in our charts or in our human designs. And today he is back at the gene key or gate 41, which is the gate in the shadow, is the gate of fantasy. In the gift is anticipation, and in the highest expression was emanation. And remember, we talked a lot about the energy in this particular gate because Mars represents our action, our dynamism, our ability to move forward. You know, that whole idea of during the retrograde, we had up this stop sign. I mean, that was really the stopping point for us for most of the summer, was the fact that Mars was retrograde. We couldn't really take new action on anything. And in fact, it wasn't just Mars. There were a whole host of planets, remember, 7 to 8 of them at any time, retrograde during the summer, and we're being released from them one by one. But as each one of those planets gets released, they go back over the same territory, right? They go back over the same places in your chart that they were back in May. And, or in this case, back in May, right, with Mars. So I just wanted to remind you that what that meant. This was a time where we were talking about how ideas and inspiration kind of gets stuck up here in the head, and we intend to take action, but we don't. Right? We keep it in the realm of fantasy or imagination without bringing it down into the world. And as I say that, I realize too that sometimes the stop sign is about waiting for all of the right things to come together in order to make it easier for you to move forward. There's always something to be said about the stop sign or about the yield sign. It protects us in some ways from making big mistakes, from realizing that the thing we jumped out into taking action about wasn't correct for us. And then we have to quit, go back. Maybe we've spent valuable time, resources, money doing something that wasn't right for us. So it gave us that opportunity to sort of tap into what was right for us. So now with Mars moving forward, going back over that, it's time for you to look at what is in your imagination still. What is still sitting up here that hasn't quite made it down into the physical world, into the world of form. Remember, Saturn pointed at form, structure. So what are you still sitting on? Now, as I say that, I want to remind you, you do these things according to your type, strategy, and authority, right? Type, you know, whether you're a generator, manifesting generator, projector, manifester, or a reflector. And each one of those types has a strategy through which they interact with the outer world and with opportunities, etc. And those are the things that you want to remember. Your authority. How is it that you are designed to make decisions? Like I pulled up a chart yesterday of someone who has a defined throat and a defined identity center, and that's it. That's a projector, by the way, because there's no connection from any of the motors up to the throat to make her a manifester, and there was no defined sacral. So she's by default a projector. And a projector with that kind of authority, self-projected, can only see herself clearly by talking to people about what it is that she's doing. Now, if she didn't know that about herself, she may be going about her life doing things in a way that's completely not right to her because of conditioning. Literally, she has 7 centers in her chart she could be conditioned through. So for all of you, it is important to look at your charts, understand your chart, right? Understand your chart. It could start with a reading through self-study, but you've got to understand that before you make any of the big decisions in your life, before you take that idea and you crystallize it and bring it into form, you make sure that it's something that is in alignment with your type, strategy, and authority. All right. So good morning, Kesar, watching from Nepal. Oh my goodness, welcome. That's a faraway and exotic place. And I'm in the state of Washington on the west coast of the United States. So that's where I am. Anyway, so there's plenty of opportunities for us then to right the ship, if you will. If you've gone off in some direction that isn't paying off, isn't working for you, this would be the time for you to reevaluate those things those actions maybe that you wanted to take back in May or even in the summer, but couldn't because of the way that the dynamics were set up. But now you may be able to relate to it in a different way. Maybe you are now getting the reason why it is that you couldn't take the action on it before, right? Maybe all the pieces weren't on the chessboard yet. Okay. So that's just an interesting thing I noted this morning. And there's no amount of imagination here in this particular gate. Literally, the gate 41 is the gate that begins the whole of the human design year. So we have echoes here of what perhaps started in January-ish for you. Even like possibly, let's see, when was the first day of I want to say it's usually around January 22nd. Let me see. Maybe I can pinpoint that date for you. It was exactly right. January 22nd, Monday, January 22nd was the first day of the human design new year, where gate 41 is where the sun was sitting. Imagination. Everything begins with an idea, with an inspiration, right? If you're a generator, you're waiting then for something in your outer world to show up, to take action, and then running it through your authority. If you are a manifester, you just take that idea, and if it feels right to you, if your authority is telling you it's time to make that move, then you can act directly on the idea. If you're a projector, you got to wait for the invitation to take action on that idea. Remember, you're Buddha. You're waiting. You're waiting for the right person, the right circumstance to invite you in to participate. Okay. Now, hi, Jan. Jan, I recognize your name. I think. Oops, that's not even the right book. I believe you requested a free human design chart. Did you not? Recently? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm checking. Jan, you did. So on September 10th, I sent you your free human design chart. And I sent it to your email address at Hotmail. And check your junk mail, check your spam folder, because it's so freaking annoying that when you request something from someone and they send it to you, that your email provider decides whether it's spam or not. That makes me mad, right? It's very frustrating for people in business who are trying to help people by getting them tools, by giving them charts, that it goes to your junk. So check it for me, please. Make sure it's not sitting there before you get another one, but you did request your chart. And to answer that question for everybody else who's listening that might be new, you go to my website, www.living-astrology.com. You request your free human design chart. I send that to you along with a description of your type. And on that chart is your authority. Everything that you need to know about you is on the chart. And so it's 9:15 p.m. in Nepal right now. So Kesar, if you go to my website and request your chart, I will be working on those later today. And by your tomorrow, you should have your chart. And Jan, definitely, I know I sent yours. So let me know if you've checked your spam folder and it isn't there. There's no way for me to help that except to just bear with it. And I do have on my website that if you don't get your chart within a couple of days, let me know, because chances are either one, I didn't get the information, or two, I sent it and you're not getting notified that it's been sent. Kesar, right now it is 8:28 a.m. Pacific time in Washington, early in the morning for us. And on the East Coast of the United States right now, it's 11:28, excuse me. All right. So now I want to go to our discussion of the gate 44, or the gene key 44. Remember yesterday we were looking at the shadow in that gate, or that gene key. It was the shadow of interference. And interference was like a virus Remember, operating in that life and evolution has a master program, and it is operating in a master program sort of way. And that viruses get into that program. And how do you get a free design chart? You go to my website here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my website right here. Moving my coffee so I don't spill it into my laptop. That would be bad. So www.living-astrology.com. There you go. So if you follow that link, you'll see right there on the front page, there are little pink boxes along here. One says request free human design chart. Click on that. It'll take you to the page. You're going to need to know your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth. Just a quick word about time. If you don't know, like some people's birth certificates just don't have time on it, which is such a crime, I think, because especially for people like me who need your birth time to get you the most accurate of charts. But if there isn't a time on your birth chart or your birth certificate, don't panic. Just maybe go to family members who might remember some things about what time it was when you were born and get me as close as you can. In human design, it's much more forgiving than in astrology in terms of the gates and the placement in the gates, because they go through spans of degrees, not just 1 degree or 2 degrees. So if you don't have a birth time, Diana, just get me as close as you can. Right? Oh, I was born in the morning, or my mom got stuck in traffic on the way to the hospital, or I, woke her up in the middle of the night. Whatever, whatever. Any information is helpful. And in the end, what I do, if someone doesn't know what their birth time was, I use the time that they requested the chart, because I'm assuming there was a purpose behind the request in that particular time. So either way, it works out. Okay. We can get pretty close. Oh, I see. Yeah. If you're adopted, that could be a problem because you don't always have your birth certificate. So if you're adopted, you might tell me a couple things about yourself, like, are you a morning person? Are you are you a night owl? Do you, love being out at night? Those kinds of things are also helpful and give me clues as to when you might have been born. In any event, don't let not knowing the time keep you from being able to request your chart, because like I said, it's much more forgiving. We may not have the moon exactly right, but we should have most of the other planets correct. So that is a good thing, right? All right. So going back to interference, we talked about interference, that it's like a virus operating in the program, throwing the collective choreography, Richard Rudd's words, out of sync. And there is a purpose even to that, because that dysfunction is a clue, right? That whole idea of the master program being wrong is incorrect. It is not the master program, but chaos as a diagnostic tool, right? The chaos in your life, the irritations in your life, the big events that feel ugly in your life as being diagnostic, like going to the hospital for an MRI, right? Only this is where that dysfunction is being shown to you so that you can reboot your system, right? Reboot the system so that you can begin to see what is out of sync in your life as a tool to help you heal the ancestral lineage. Because remember, when we look at this gene key, we are very much connected to the genetic baggage that we've brought with us from the lineage, the fractal that you're a part of, right? And it is when those interference patterns are transcended that you're actually healing, not just for you, but all of the fractal, right? All of the fractal. And your relationships then are designed to help you find those areas where you have those imbalances. Okay. And that's how we worked through the shadow, the shadow of interference. We also talked a little bit about interference on an evolutionary scale, where if we looked at the Mayan calendar, remember in the planting of the world tree, what we saw were these interference waves that periodically were shot off out into the world, because there's a purpose behind it, and it is evolution of consciousness. And it is that evolution of consciousness that sometimes has to have that wave interference. It causes us to sit up and take notice, right? sit up and take notice that we're out of balance somewhere. So now when we get to the Gene Key 44, gift of teamwork, now we have an interesting new definition for team, or what teamwork is. And the working definition that I'm starting with this morning is the recognition of who belongs in your life. Have you ever had the instance, and this has happened to me many times, so I'm sure it's happened to all of you too, where you meet someone for the first time, but you get this niggling feeling that you've known them before, or that you know them from somewhere else, right? That it's like they seem so familiar to you that either they remind you of someone else in your life, or you just have that sneaking suspicion that this person, there's more to this person than meets the eye. That is because, in a word, your cells have business together, right? You're part of the same fractal. So I want to recommend, I want to recommend this show to all of you because it's so profound in its subject matter, even though it is portrayed in some ways violently and even sexually. It is the show on Netflix called Sense 8, Sense 8, the number 8, because this group of people, these 8 people, are part of this fractal line, and they're emotionally connected. And it goes through the process of showing you how that works, how that possibility works in humans. And if you can get past the violence and get past the sex, and it's not out of, it's not distasteful, it's just kind of craziness. To the deeper message, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here, right? So your cells have business together, i.e., you're meant to be in relationship in some way, shape, or form, even if it is just a relationship in the moment of the passing of the moment, right? That connection in the moment may be all there is in order for you to work through whatever it was that you had going between you, because we don't always see the whole picture. So teamwork and smell. What does that how does that even come together, right? So when we look at the Gene Key 44, it is, how when we looked at Gene Key 57, when Venus was sitting at 57, the gift of intuition, we saw that there was a very uh, auditory component, right? Like you could almost hear the right people, that you could hear the messages that were correct for you. Well, in Gate 44, it's about smell. So through personal contact with someone, if you have Gate 44 defined, and it doesn't matter where it is, it's just a matter of how is it going to show up. Through personal contact with someone, a handshake, a hug, you literally can read their true nature. And it's literally coming through the smell, through the sense of smell. Smelling not just with your nose, but with your entire immune system, like through every pore of your skin. You're sensing, you're smelling whether this person is in your lineage or not, a part of your fractal or not, right? And um, in a way, the cues that Gate 44 picks up on from a smell sense are the things that most of us cannot detect with the literal sense of smell: pheromones, hormonal changes within the body. Our counterparts in the canine world are very smell oriented. Lots of animals in the animal world, they can smell. There's some animals that can smell blood a mile away, right? Lions and tigers and other hyenas and animals like that, they can smell. Like, can you imagine smelling something from a mile away? But if you have Gate 44, you are detecting smells on a level that other people just don't think of. And all of this is about aligning you with your fractal, aligning you with your people, right? The right people. So when you can, and this happens, by the way, not just to everybody all day long, but when you overcome the interference patterns in your fractal, you pick up the scent, if you will, of your allies, of the people who are good for you, of the situations that are good for you, the opportunities that are right for you. And then you begin to move through your life being able to use that sense, right? Your higher instincts, picking up the right people and picking up the subtleties through the smell of where I need to be. And I carry gate 44. Londa, you carry gate 44. Tom, you carry gate 44. Anybody born in 1961 had Neptune sitting at gate 44, and maybe a little bit earlier in 1961 than June, and maybe even a little bit later, beyond, say, October, November. Neptune, your spiritual job was to smell out the people that are in your fractal line, right? It's so fascinating to me, right? It's almost like you, as a person carrying gate 44 defined, can even sense with smell what other people's higher purposes are, what your own higher purpose is, as in this invisible line that you pick up on that puts you in the right place at the right time with the right people. And now I'm going to turn reincarnation upon its head. Most of you a lot of you, including me, because I had this same thought, and I'm not sure I'm over this thought yet, but it's okay, right? Because we are in the moon in Aquarius, right? We're going to be exposed to new ideas today, and I'm going to expose you to a new idea about reincarnation. First of all, I want to remind you about that master program, right, that we talked about yesterday in the interference, that there's a master operating program working on the planet, working in the universe, working on behalf of consciousness to force sort of an evolution, right, to allow for the growth and expansion of our consciousness. Well, that master program operates beyond the scope of time and space. It isn't linear, let's say that, right? From our perspective, we view our lineage, look at the word lineage, made up of the root word line for line, right? So we view it personally from our perspective as a line, right? As a direct line to the past. Lineage evokes that genetic heritage or connection to our ancestors. Ancestors means past. And it also sometimes, for people who are working in the shamanic world, it also means the people that are yet to come in our future. So we view it through the coordinates of space and time. But the master program operates outside of space and time. There's sort of this orchestration of evolution that's occurring through our collective gene pools. Think about that for a second, right? Evolution through our collective gene pools as part of this master operating program. So, in other words, reincarnation isn't just about the individual soul surviving death and coming back again. It's more like the reading of the fractal line, right? And identifying when you're remembering a past life, like what was it? Natasha yesterday shared with us an aha she had about a past life. It's more the reading of her fractal lineage and the archetypal aspect of that fractal that she holds, that she has as a part of the. So we're reincarnating as a fractal, not as just a soul. Oh, awesome, Mimi. Great. Jane Roberts, The Education of Oversoul 7. Um, I remember reading that when I was about 19, 20 years old and totally lost in it. That might be something good to reread. Um, because there is a sense then that there's something bigger at work. It's not just you repeating these lessons from one life to another. It is this group, this lineage, this fractal of souls that are working together to clear, to bring into balance, to harmonize, to evolve consciousness. I don't know about you guys, but that just threw me. I mean, in a good way. I mean, I don't mean it like it threw me in a bad way where now I'm like questioning. Look, it's 8:44. Too funny. So interestingly enough, then it puts maybe more meaning and emphasis on the people in your life and the experiences that you're having with those people, good, bad, and the ugly, right? Good, bad, and the ugly, because you've all incarnated here together with the sole purpose of this evolution, this operating of this master plan, if you will, or program. And the disturbances in that are really about the interference patterns that create the diagnostic tool for you to know where it is you're out of alignment with your purpose, with your part of the evolving organism that we know of as humanity. Really, really fascinating stuff. This is really deep stuff. Really, really deep stuff. And I wonder how that impacts our connections with other fractals on the planet, right? Other fractals, like, the fractal of if we want to break it into the billionaire fractals, the fractal of ancestral connections, like the Muslim people, if you're a Black American or a Black person in this world, that fractal. And what does all of that mean? I mean, there's something bigger at play. In other words, even if you feel like you're suffering or that you're having issues, and there are plenty of us out there having issues and suffering through weird shit. There's just no other way around it, right? Stop for a moment and be able to take a look at the deeper or the bigger picture, right? Using that chaos, that craziness, that interaction that set you on your teeth or set you on an edge. What is that showing you? What is the diagnostic there? It's not easy by any means. Boy, sometimes just doing that, I came with the psychology that says, let's look at that, but not everybody has that. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody knows how to do that either. But I think you begin by looking at, what is it that is irritating me about this interaction? What is the fear, right? What is the fear? Remember, that's the whole reason we've been doing this, is that these gates that we're talking about with Venus are ultimately gates about fear. The fear in the gate 44 or the gene key 44 is that the past is going to repeat itself. Like, I had a nasty breakup the last time I met up with a guy in a bar, and it was ugly. And now I'm not going to talk to any guys in the bar because that means I'm going to end up in a nasty breakup situation. Doesn't necessarily make it true, right? You're taking the past and you're using the past as baggage instead of a bridge to the now. Makes sense, right? Let's take a look here. Have I written any books? Well, let me show you something here. I may even not have it because I tend to hide it from myself. I have these things called thumb drives, right? With books on them. Books that I've written, but not published. Here's another one. I pulled this one out because I was going to write another book and put it on here. I don't know, Jan, I should have, but I tend to channel these things that I say. And so then when I sit down to write, it's gone. It's gone. That wisdom just whizzes away. But guess what? 2 days ago, I got an email from this program I use, or from the people who own the program, and they are adding a component to their services of transcription. And what that means is, every day when I do this talk, Facebook puts it in a video format, and then I take that video and I turn it into a YouTube video. And then so I can reach, my 66 subscribers, tongue in cheek, laugh out loud. And then that particular program now can take that video and transcribe it into words. What? Right? I just haven't decided if that is something I really need yet. Right? I'm emotionally defined. So to me, that would be a fairly expensive undertaking right now. So I need to make sure that I really feel good about that. But anyway, it is just an interesting possibility to be able to take everything I say through video and turn it into the written word without me having to rewrite everything. Or I could always take what I do write, because I write, just about a full outline every morning. When you guys hear me on the air in the morning, my day actually starts at 6 a.m. Right? I get up, I get dressed, I get my makeup on, get my room tidied up, and then I sit down and I work out for probably about an hour, maybe a little less. Depends on how inspired I am that day, how creative, how flowing the creativity is that day. And I prepare what we're going to do, what we're going to say, what I'm going to say. And then I just let spirit take over. I mean, a lot of times you see me looking down because I'm looking down at things that I really, really, really wanted to make sure I emphasized. So it is a process here every day of bringing this to you, Monday through Friday anyway. And that just makes me want to remind you guys that did put up a donation page because I do have expenses around doing this work. Not just my time. My time I give freely because that part is just fun for me. But I have to pay for all of the different things that I use, my equipment, my platform that this goes on, etc. So when you go to the Living Astrology Facebook page, you see pinned to the top a donation page. Thank you for those of you who have donated. My heart swells just because it swells with all of you, whether you donate or not. That's not the point. But if you feel it in your heart that you want to donate and keep this work out here, please feel free to go to that page and donate. And may 1,000 blessings come back at you for what you give to my work. Anyway, and I am so not good at this stuff. I'm so not good at promoting myself. Oh my God, marketing myself. Geez, it's the last thing I want to do, right? And unbelievably, before I did this kind of work, I was in sales. I was good in sales. National Salesperson of the Month, Manager of the Year, all kinds of awards for sales because I'm good at it. I could see exactly what someone needs and I could point them in that direction. But for me, it's like my total blind spot. I don't see what's good for me. It's just the way it goes, I guess, right? So at any rate, thank you all for joining me this morning. And tomorrow, I'm not sure what we'll take up tomorrow. We'll take up the Siddhi, the highest expression of the gate 44 or gene key 44. And I'll be doing that by introducing you to a new word, synarchy, and what that means. And I'll give you a hint. The chapter is titled The Coming of the Queendom. The Coming of the Queendom. I don't know. I haven't finished reading all of that, but it's really fascinating. And we'll take a last look at what's coming up for the autumn equinox. And tomorrow being Friday, we'll take a look at what's coming up for the weekend. I know we're also heading into the full moon. Let's see, the full moon is actually actually on Monday, so we won't even deal with the full moon until next week. But maybe I'll touch on it just because it's an interesting full moon, right? Interesting because it's across the full moon, the sun in Libra and Aries. So that gives me this idea of relationships and relationship building and maybe the changes that could take place in your relationships, maybe the releasing of a relationship, the dynamics of conflict within relationships. Could be a very interesting new moon or full moon. So thank you, Jan. Let's look through the comments before I leave this morning. She says, it's been interesting. You must write that book. Yes, I should. But I've got lots of other things I'm working on. You should see my ideas. Craziness. Mimi, yes, it was an amazing view of possibilities. We can also be our own fractals embedded within other fractals. Oh, yeah. Fractals within fractals. That could almost drive you crazy. I think that's it for comments there. So good morning, April. I didn't see you out there. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Remember to send your prayers, your thoughts, and your precious gift of loveliness outward to the world and allow the people who need that energy to absorb it. And I will see you tomorrow morning. Thank you all for joining me, new and old alike. And I am so excited to see our community growing here every day. And I will see you tomorrow morning. Mwah! Bye for now. Take care, all.